All right, you're at the InformationNOW winter release preview. This is we have blocked about 30 minutes out for the session today. I'll probably talk for about 25 minutes, and then we'll take questions if there are any. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay. My name is Chris Houston. I'm the Executive Vice President of Product Management at SPI. One of my main responsibilities is planning, release planning, and product planning for InformationNOW. We do these presentations before every release to share information about upcoming releases for InformationNOW, as well as some information about new things that we're working on. It's all tied to our project planning. We have very strict project planning built around every release. We do what's called baselining of our project plan 3 to 4 months prior to the general availability of the release. And since we do that project planning, we know what's going to be in the release. We can share that information well ahead of the release, and that's what the purpose of this WebEx. Part of our process. So every release we have milestone checklists that have all sorts of tasks associated with them, whether it's internal training, external training, documentation, that sort of thing. We have these WebExes are part of the same process. That's just a checkbox on our milestone report. So what we'll do is we'll cover the upcoming release of the winter release at a high level, and we'll talk a little bit about some other things we're working on, and then have time for some Q&A, hopefully. Okay, first our release schedule. The InformationNOW release schedule is, we've gone to 2 releases a year. The next release is the winter release, the one we're here to talk about today. It will be released in early February, probably either the 11th or the 18th of February. Our summer release, our second major release for the year, will be in mid-July. The past couple of years, it's been around close around 4th of July, or the week after 4th of July. It'll probably be a little later this year because we're a little too close to 4th of July. It causes us some scheduling issues. And again, 2 major releases a year going forward as we started for the last year or so. 2 to 3 weeks prior to each release, we do betas. We do production and non-production betas. We try to pick a beta in at least one customer in each state, as well as some private schools, a sampling of private schools. Again, these can be betas that are non-production, just done in a training environment, or they can be production, done in a live environment. And again, if you'd like to be participate in our beta program, feel free to contact your customer care rep, and they can tell you how to get signed up. The other thing that happens in conjunction with the beta, which may be more important really than the beta, is the fact that the training documentation is released. With each release, we have very detailed training documentation that goes over every change request, every enhancement that's part of the release, lists a lot of the defects that have been corrected. The document's very detailed. We have screenshots, use cases, business rule outlines, examples of what is in every release by module. So it's, you'll get an email from us when that documentation is posted, telling you how to download it. It's important, especially if you're an SPI kind of point of contact where people are coming to you and asking you questions about InformationNOW. It's a good document to have ahead of time so that you can kind of prepare for what's in the next release. The other thing we do post-release is that we do WebEx training. So in the 2-week period, 2 to 3 week period after the release is generally available, we'll offer free WebEx sessions that'll go through the release in detail and do a type of training on the new features. What's in every release? There are 3 things that are part of every release. First thing is you'll always have state reporting updates. Secondly, you'll have bug fixes. The winter release, typically we do more defect fixes, more maintenance than in the summer release. Tends to be a focus. And then of course you have enhancements, or what we call change requests, are always part of every release. And those are driven by customer feedback and feedback from support and from our various advisory groups and so forth. Okay, so we're going to go through items on the winter release at this point. I'm probably not going to talk about every single item on these slides. Probably try to hit the high points. First one, attendance by date. If you use that currently, I believe it pages at 50 records, which if you're dealing with a large amount of records, you got to do a lot of back and forth. It doesn't always remember previous pages and next pages. So you got to typically do more work than you need to if you're dealing with more than 50 records. So we remove pagination from that control. Several things in gradebook. Currently, if you're in the gradebook and you have a class that lasts multiple grading periods and you're into the second grading period for that class, if you alter your categories or your category weights, categories are section specific, not grading period specific. So if you alter your categories and you're in the second grading period, it would recalculate, and the weights were changed, it will recalculate your first grading period average in your gradebook. And you really don't want that unless you intend that. And a lot of people didn't realize that was happening. So that's been changed so that you can't do that unless you have proper credentials, proper permission. Second item, enter exempt from student averages direct entry. So over the course of the last several releases, we've done things in direct entry to allow you to enter scores more easily there. For example, I think in the summer release maybe we changed it so you can enter numeric or alphabetic values under direct entry. What you couldn't do is you couldn't enter exemptions. So if you had an exam that was a graded item, part of a final average, and you allowed people to be exempt, there was no way to indicate that in direct entry. So because of that, if you had to make exams a component of an average and you needed to account for exemptions, you actually had to set up a single activity average in your gradebook, which is extra steps for teachers if you don't want to do it that way. So at this point, with the enter exempt capability added, you should be able to do whatever you want with exams under direct entry. The third item under gradebook is targeted to iPads and tablets. Currently, and I'm going to talk about another item that's related to iPads and tablets a little later. Currently, you can use InformationNOW, I'll just say iPad, but I mean iPads and tablets. You can do it on an iPad, you can run iNow on an iPad, and it works pretty well with a couple exceptions. One big exception is there's no way to enter grades at the gradebook level or under student averages direct entry. There's no way to enter grades on the iPad. You can't click in the cell to add a grade. One of the reasons you can't do that is in the desktop version of iNow, when you're running on the desktop, you can click in the heading for the graded item or the heading or the activity, and it will bring up the grade edit screen and let you cycle through. When you try to, in effect, click on those areas on an iPad, nothing happens. So one of the things we're doing is making those headings hyperlinks like they show on the desktop, making show those hyperlinks on the iPad so that you can enter grades in that fashion on the iPad. You still won't be able to click in the cell, so you will be able to quick enter grades by cycling in effect down a column. Control which withdrawn students get posted. Right now, posting of grades at the end of grading period is all or nothing with regard to withdrawn students. We're adding a school setting that will allow you to say, well, I want to post grades for kids who've been withdrawn in the last 5 days of the grade reporting period, for example, or the last 3 days of the grade reporting period if you're close to the end. Under enrollment, first item, integration with future academic sessions. Currently, when you create a new academic session, you automatically register all your kids up. And you may do that, early in January, February maybe. And then, but during the rest of the year, you have kids that withdraw from your school, but they still remain registered in that future academic session. So this change request is all about if a kid basically kind of syncing that up, so that if a kid withdraws, for example, from a current academic session, that it automatically, if he's registered in future academic sessions, it unregisters that student. And there's a setting to enable that functionality, a new setting. The other thing is some states have to mass withdraw students at the end of the year. There's a bunch of, tightening of that logic, additional error checking, kind of like I said, tightening of the logic so that it's more difficult to make a mistake. Grading, we have some advanced GPA calculation stuff that we introduced that's equivalent of some of the advanced GPA calculation logic that was in ICI Office. For those of you as private school users that use tuition billing, we're adding the tuition billing statement to the home module as an option. So typically in the winter, our biggest work item is scheduling, and this year that's probably about the same. Done a lot of work around scheduling in this release. Our second largest work item is probably the query tool. The first three bullets here relate to just really to student fields and contact fields being entered, being added to student views. So there's a ton of them. Basically, a lot of fields you can see, for example, on the miscellaneous tab that aren't in any of the student views are added. Address fields, differentiating between mailing and physical, differentiating between primary phones and non-primary phones. A lot of stuff like that. We've added a lot of missing discipline fields. And then lastly, the ability to export to a working filter. So currently, there's not really a way to do advanced filters that don't pertain to data exposed on the filter edit screens or forms. So what you can do with the winter release is you can go into the query tool and create a query. For example, students who have a certain LEP status, for example. And you can create that query and filter on those fields, and then save that the characteristics of that query to a working filter, so that then you can run any report that uses working filters based on the characteristics of the query. So you could run a report on your LEP kids, for example. The other thing is you can take working filters and create filters out of those working filters. It allows you basically to construct a query, make it a working filter, and then if you want to make that a filter that's available to everybody, you can do that. Several scheduling items. Inherit staff and course constraints in previous academic sessions. If you use the master schedule builder and you set up constraints, there's a way now to inherit those from previous academic sessions. You don't have to re-enter them. Several master schedule kind of edit issues. If you use period variations at all, you notice that as you click periods on and off, that you get frequent screen refreshes, which really slows down the work. We had the ability to copy custom data when the master schedule is copied, and also we corrected the tab order so that when you're tabbing through fields on the master schedule form, you go in the correct order. We have a procedure to create course requests and career plans. You've got career plans entered with request tabs to them. You can assign those requests to kids based on their grade level. Automated scheduler permission for the current year. We added a automated scheduler permission for the current year to allow you to keep people from running the automated scheduler in the current year. So there's now a current year and a future year permission for the automated scheduler. When the update runs, anybody who's got an automated scheduler permission will be given the new year permission to keep people from, or allow you to keep people from running automated scheduler in the current academic year. I've got some master schedule builder warnings. On the valid course, when you go into the valid course form, there's a task to see a course request roster, and so we added the ability to tell what kids were scheduled from that list of requests, so you can easily see who's been scheduled and who hasn't. And then course request matrix, we added a way to filter the course request matrix on just certain courses, so you can set whether you want just courses that are offered once or twice, for example, on your course request matrix. A couple things under students. Household and contact integration. Currently, we have households, and then, of course, when you set up students, you have the ability to add contacts and indicate whether they're responsible for a bill or whether they're head of a household and so forth. But it's not really affecting the household object when you do that sort of thing. So what happens now is if you do things under student with contacts or if you do things in household, they update each other so that those two things are kept in sync. We added a schedule matrix in the summer release, which is a new schedule changing screen. That was not available under the manage options on the student search. We're adding that. And then for those of you who are in states that use district services for state reporting, we added a way to mass manage, mass assign district services. Couple things under transcripts. Basically, the stuff that we did with transcripts was to allow you to manually edit transcripts and not lose that when you post, and to not post transcript terms or create transcript terms for kids who really shouldn't have them, like maybe they never got any graded items or they withdrew or whatever. So both those bullets mostly deal with the kind of tightening up the posting of transcripts to help ranks work better and rank calculations work better and allow you to record grades without losing that work. We did several things around end of year, start of year procedures in terms of, again, trying to tighten things up, make it more difficult to make mistakes. Within the creation of an academic session within that wizard, there's some more error checks to keep you from potentially creating an academic session and entering the wrong academic year, or not having term dates, or having term dates and enrollments and then changing the term date, things like that. We did a lot of work with promotions. Currently, the routines for promotion are all or nothing. Once you promote students, you can't promote again, for example, and you've got to, if you want to promote again or if you make a mistake, you've got to go through a lot to do that. You've got to ask us to help you with that, basically. So we changed all of that. Now there's no longer a promotion flag, per se. I can promote as many times as I want, and it will only promote kids who haven't been promoted. I can unpromote. There are error checks and status screens so you know basically what's been done, who's been promoted. Error checks, for example, to keep you from promoting into an academic session that you really haven't started yet or whatever. So again, just focusing on usability and making it more difficult to make a mistake. We got several miscellaneous items. We have a lot of integration with career cruising in the winter release. If you're a career cruising customer, we have the ability to set up the career cruising portal, export transcript data and stuff like that on your students. We also have an import feature in case you're collecting course requests, for example. in career cruising to import those course requests. State reporting is a constant focus, so we're always adding error reporting to state reporting. Mobile device login pass-through. This is a kind of relates to the iPad tablet discussion. One of the things that happens today, if you log in on an iPad or a smartphone and you're not a parent, and it basically makes you log in, or a staff member, it makes you log in again in order to get into iNow. So that's one thing that we've addressed. The second thing is, if you're on a tablet or an iPad, it assumes you want the mobile site, which for parents using the home portal takes them to the mobile version of the home portal instead of the full version. So again, that's no longer the case. If you're on a tablet or iPad, it'll take you to a full site. And for those of you that are users of iNow, it won't force you to log in twice anymore. Online registration API, we're doing some work with basically real-time interfaces to an online registration vendor called InformationNOW. Reports closed parameter screen when complete. That's just an option so that when a report's finished, you don't have to come back and close the parameter screen where you entered all the setup information. It closes it automatically just to save you some clicks. We updated online help. Got course code projects, which is an Alabama issue, which if you're from Alabama, you've probably heard plenty of that. And that course code project is part of the winter release. Okay, so that's everything on the winter release. And again, everything I've set up to now, you can pretty much take it to the bank that stuff's going to be there. The stuff I've talked about is going to be in the release. A couple things I haven't talked about actually that'll probably be in the release too, but the stuff I've talked about is 100% going to be there unless we have some sort of unforeseen circumstance, which obviously we don't foresee. Couple other things we're working on. And again, this stuff is all tentative. I don't really have release dates, but I can tell you that we're working on it. It's going to happen at some point in the next 12 months. In Focus, we're going to have an In Focus release probably in the spring. The main focus of that release is going to be new views, more views, lots more views actually of data, lots more ways to get at the data from the ad hoc side. And the biggest one of those is kind of the super student view, which would allow you basically to see a student and anything related to that student, attendance, discipline, grades, all in one view. We also have a really nice report that's going to be in the next In Focus release that relates standardized tests, allows you to relate standardized test scores to report card grades and transcript grades to kind of relate test score performance, for example, on the math section of a test to math grades and to see what those trends look like. So again, that's In Focus release. You'll probably see it sometime into late spring. And the last thing I want to talk about, what else are we doing? We talked about In Focus. We'll have a health release either in the spring or the summer. That depends on timing and resources. And then the last thing, just talk about briefly, is we have a project starting at the beginning of next calendar year that will begin to rework our user interface, first focusing on the classroom, to do what's called kind of use an adaptive approach to the user interface, so that when you use the application, it will adjust based on whether you're on an iPhone, an iPad, or a desktop. We're also going to use this opportunity to kind of create API access to the application and to to streamline workflow and clicks and things like that. Use some of the new technologies available for user interface design.